I'm back, and I just wanted to touch on this before I leave and go to work. But I guess you could say history was made for President Donald Trump. He is now going to be the first president to be impeached twice. I mean, is rare for presidents. We had a few presidents in the past that's been impeached. Most recently, Bill Clinton over the most bullshit reasons in regard to Bill Clinton. But anyway, and I'm speaking as somebody who hates Bill Clinton, so there's no partisanship with me. Um, in late 2019, Trump was impeached for the first time, and I was actually opposed to his impeachment in 2019, early 2020, and I'll tell you why. Um, I don't necessarily think that the Ukraine crisis was as big of a deal as some partisan Democrats wanted to claim it is. I mean, so freaking what? He wanted to find dirt on Joe Biden. I mean, I mean, political candidacies try to find dirt on their opponents, and there's nothing new under the sun about that. So I just kind of thought that was all big ado about nothing. However, I disagree with people like Adam Schiff, who became so freaking Russia obsessed. And that's an aside note, separate from the impeachment. But since 2016, the narrative has been that Trump is tied with Vladimir Putin. He's tied with Russia. Russia, Russia, Putin, Putin. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, as I normally say in these commentaries, because I kind of repeat myself. But I do think that Vladimir Putin is a bad man, but only really to the Russian people and a little bit to the Ukrainians. He is not a threat to the United States. I mean, we're talking about a country with one aircraft carrier, and we're talking about a country with 30 bases around the world. You compare that to the United States with over 1,000 military bases around the world, its presence everywhere. Um, no, I just think that Russia was this partisan narrative to blame for Hillary Clinton's incompetence because she was the wrong candidate that the Democrats chose in 2016. And also it comes close to home with me because not only has Donald Trump been tied to Russia, but these Hillaristas have also tied Bernie Sanders to Russia, tied Gil Stein to Russia, tied Tulsi Gabbard to Russia, and and I'm just thinking to myself. I mean, anybody who questions the status quo, whether it's the good kind of questioning of the status quo or the bad kind of questioning of the status quo, they've been tied to Russia, 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 and I'm sick of it. But anyway, when he was acquitted, um, he was acquitted a few by February of 2020, and we all knew that was going to be the conclusion. And the problem with impeachment in 2019, we all knew was that Mitch McConnell was not going to allow a Republican-controlled Senate to go and remove President Donald Trump. And the result was that Trump back then, and this is before COVID started to rear its ugly head. And we started hearing about COVID, but we just thought, we just thought it was a hoax or minimized it back then because we hear about viruses coming around and being a potential problem every I would say probably about every 8 to 10 years we'd be hearing about this sort of thing. But apparently, when there's no apparent, COVID will turn out to be the real deal. But we just thought we minimized COVID, so we thought normal times were going to ensue, and Trump was going to be made to look like a hero and a victim at the same time. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh, this is one more reason and one more way where liberals end up, shooting themselves in the face, and not knowing how to fight absolutely ruthlessly in the way the Republicans fight. When they fight petty, and they fight battles where they're almost guaranteed to lose. And also, I had more fears then of Mike Pence than Donald Trump. As hard as it is to believe now, I look at Mike Pence as a fucking normal politician. Certainly, anybody, not a person I would want to see in the White House in any capacity. But thing about it is that now he looks like a reasonable person next to Trump. Now, there were valid reasons to impeach Trump as far back as last year. And I would say that basically selling arms to Saudi Arabia, where a lot of that money is being used resources are being used to funnel to radical jihadis around the world. And the United States is indirectly contributing to a genocide that's being committed in Yemen. I know it's not a sexy subject for people to discuss, but if you were a person from Yemen and you lived in Yemen and you're having radical crazies killing you, I mean, you have a different perspective on this. And shame and fuck any politician that votes to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, one of the most dangerous countries to be on friendly terms with in that region of the world. I don't care what I hear from neocons that wants to start a war with Iran. I don't like the government of Iran, but Iran is not a threat at all compared to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia poses far more as a bigger threat to the West than Iran. But we do things ass backwards. We sit there and we sell arms to Saudi Arabia, but we go and try to fight with Iran as much as possible. But anyway, let's fast forward to January 6, 2021. Just all about 2 months after the election, there was an insurrection or a storming at the U.S. Capitol. And I suffice to say that I will say that corporate Democrats and progressives were perhaps correct about the Trump derangement syndrome. That I did take the Trump threat seriously. I mean, I wasn't supportive of Trump, but I kind of didn't really. I was just thinking the man is a buffoon. He's silly. I mean, he's all talk, and Mike Pence is the one that's yeah, I still think Mike Pence was the one dotting the i's and slashing the t's and doing all the everything that was actually shitty policy wise. I still think there was a lot of Mike Pence's fingerprints more so than it was on Trump. However, in a lot of areas Trump was dangerous, and I just let the humor and the banter and the Saturday Night Live comedy sketch persona of Trump himself, because I felt like we were living in an SNL sketch. I just let that kind of sidetrack me. But although Trump's presidency is rather short at this time, 8:30 p.m. on January 13th, 2021, right now, as I am ranting, I do support this impeachment at this point in juncture. Whether the coup was accidental or accidental stirring of emotions out of control, or whether it was an orchestrated actual coup, and if it was still a very botched up one. And honestly, I can't take a QAnon shaman dressed up in body paint seriously. You think America's going to start taking orders from that? I mean, even Alex Jones have kind of backed away from the QAnon crazies. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this boldly again. Please do not blame Antifa. Do not blame Black Lives Matter. They were not responsible for this. Any actual craziness or wrongdoing, and I'm not saying that I'm not doing the equivalency, because I support Black Lives Matter, and yeah, as myself. But anything that's controversial or negative that's being done by Black Lives Matter or Antifa, and I don't agree with every tactic by Antifa. I think Antifa, I have my opinions on Antifa for another post, but I certainly am opposed to declaring them a terrorist organization. Um, the point I'm trying to make is that they were not involved one iota with this situation last week, the insurrection that took place last week at the nation's capital. But the thing is, the fact remains that there was in fact a riot which was incited, whether by design or by circumstances. It was incited. But my real big concern would be the potential of more civil unrest and crackdowns on civil liberties. And you know that the two parties are just aching to do this. And I'm fearful of a second civil war, and I'm fearful of a beat up, more beat up Patriot Act or a Patriot Act 2. And I am concerned about online censorship, and I'm concerned about what's going to happen in the years to come. So basically, I'm an independent. I don't belong to the Democrats or Republicans. Yes, I do. I guess you could say I caucus with explicitly left-wing Democrats, and I'm talking about AOC and people like AOC in Congress. I unapologetically am supportive of her. Just the way Bernie Sanders sort of caucuses with the Democrats. He's an independent. I sometimes think he's way too wedged up in the Democratic Party these days, but that's, you know, I'm speaking from somebody of a mindset of a 1990s Bernie Sanders fan. I said this before too. I was the first online Bernie bro when I was in the Socialist Party USA, and when the Socialist Party USA drifted away from Bernie Sanders. I was one of the strongest defenders of Bernie Sanders. And online, I would be attacked. They didn't call me a Bernie bro, but they attacked me for supporting Bernie Sanders. But at least people in the Socialist Party USA, and even assholes in Vermont like the late Peter Diamondstone, who were hating on Bernie Sanders, at least when they did so from a principle, and sometimes not so principled, but still a strong left-wing perspective. Whereas the Hillary Clintons and the corporate Democrats that attack him from the right while pretending to be woke, I have no respect for them. And I would not ever work with a corporate Democrat under any circumstances. Corporate Democrats are not my allies. And I'm still not sorry that I voted for Jill Stein in 2016. And I'm still not sorry I voted for Howie Hawkins in 2020. And I will fucking do it again. Because honestly, it is the corporate Democrats' shenanigans that gave us Donald Trump. I mean, it is their shenanigans, and it's their neoliberalism that stretches back to the days of Bill Clinton when he took over the Democratic Leadership Council and turned the Democratic. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm too partisan. As I said, I am independent. There are Republicans, and I'm very critical of Republicans, more so than the Democrats, but there are Republicans that when things when show individually that when there is a crisis, that they're willing to take on their own party, and I will respect them when they do that. I don't agree with Rand Paul on economics, the U.S. Senator from Kentucky, the junior senator. But when it comes to foreign policy, he and the military-industrial complex, dude isn't that bad on the issue. His father, Ron Paul, worked with Dennis Kucinich, worked with Bernie Sanders over the years. I'm not a fan of Mike Lee of Utah 99% of the time, but there's a strong 1% admiration I do have for him, and that's when he worked with Bernie Sanders to stop the sales of arms to Saudi Arabia. So I mean, sometimes you have to kind of look beyond blue team and red team, even as an independent who leans blue, but do not like the swamp of the blue. And I'm sure, and there are libertarian-minded conservatives and independents that feels the same way too. That they may lean red, but don't want to swim in the red swamp either. But anyway, that's just my take on this. And whether Trump is going to get removed from office or not in the next week, um, well, we'll see what happens. Anyway, if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you were kind of just like, damn it, there he is at it again, comment anyway. I'll be glad to have a conversation with you. Um, Feel free to share the content on this channel. Please, by all means, develop a platform, especially if you're passionate about something, and utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. Subscribe to this channel, please do. And until next time, peace, and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024.